So hey, if you're listening or watching this, or both, then just know, yeah, there are some audio issues if you didn't see the post that I made, and particularly for some reason, as I get Herald Eldritch Parasite as my randomized settings. I don't know why I stuttered there. But yeah, I made another audio mistake. After like a video or two of me saying, hey, I'm not gonna make an audio mistake, so... so, anywho, let's see, definitely Eldritch Parasite. And then we see what happens. So, as we get into... I think it was Herald? As we get into Herald Eldritch Parasite with the custom character, yep, it's time to do a thing. Also, so what I wanted to do, and if you skip forward in the timestamp, as we have second encounter, charisma, knowledge, dexterity, light, and maybe Takshi-san, as my mic is still too close to my mouth so you can hear that. Yeah, I made some audio issue problems. Specifically, on OBS, for some reason, I disabled the audio plugin that I'm using. I really should just turn that off at this point, because modern games moving forward, for those who don't know, who are using the same setting that I'm using, or plugin that I'm using, it causes other audio issues, specifically crackling. I assume it's because the plugin is trying to... the audio has to pass through this plugin and then it gets filtered. Because of that filter, I assume weird things happen with more modern games. But as we get recluse footage, scissors, phantasms, and teen... I guess we just get lost in a bunch of non-town mysteries after footage. That's the plan. But we are just going to sit here in History Club. So what I actually wanted to talk about, though, was the, I guess, kind of rewinding back, if Future Jordan didn't already make the thumbnail here, as we just autopilot for Mind Drain Ghostly Spear. Although, there is something to say about that, because... specifically, I wanted to talk about Kana. Obviously, other things on the tier list as well, because recently, within the past 12 hours, for whatever reason, I just decided to listen to my stream in which I made a tier list. Obviously, other people make tier lists, like, in terms of, just trying to, like, what characters are best to play. That's why I made specific guidelines when I made my tier list, because I know that, I guess we're just gonna stick with Ghostly Spear. Yeah, I know that there are some nuances to basically playing World of War, and I think one of them was, so if you didn't see the stream, one of the guidelines I set is that I allowed, hold on, let me remember my thing. I'm just going to say forest. We're in footage now, we might as well just put it in the forest, the police patrols. One of my guidelines was that I allowed exploits and bugs, even if they are... detrimental to the player. For example, some enemies are bugged to deal double damage for no reason, whether that's a display error or not. Like, just some enemies just hit you super hard, so there's that. But what I meant by that specific guideline was that I think I wanted to basically specify it to certain exploits, not just allowing all exploits and bugs. But this extends to, as we talk about Kana not being affected by certain max stamina, max reason. And if nothing else, off the top of my head, as I get a free weapon for, I mean, we might as well equip it. So Kana gets to benefit from using Ghostly Spear and Mind Drain without the max stamina reason costs, because, well, Kana is locked. Their max stamina, max reason is fixed at 8. But what that also means is that on Eldritch Parasite, you have a bad time because, unlike characters that get 33 max stamina and reason, Kana just sticks at 8. So you're not dead immediately, but that's a lot of doom. And I think, in my last recording, I think the numbers I crunched are pretty good. That's free, -5 doom. Alright, I'll take it. That allows me to look into the History Club again when I get the chance, but we'll see if I get the chance. Otherwise, yeah, Kana... I think I crunched the numbers. On average, you're probably... Well, again, I tried to crunch the numbers. There's no way you can really crunch the numbers, but you're probably going to get about... With... even with a little bit non-optimal play, and I'm not assuming that you know what events you're going to run into, you're probably going to take 15-20% Doom. That's a little bit low, but you get the point. You're going to get an extra 15-20% Doom, because on average, if you're playing... so that number... A big part of that number, where that comes from, is that on average, on Eldritch Parasite, if you're not doing something like Ghostly Spear or Mind Drain, which pretty much only like a handful of players will probably do, you're not meant to take more than, say, well, let's say 30 stamina, 30 reason if you're playing as conscious of Eldritch Parasite, because otherwise you're just dead, right? Like, you take 33 stamina damage, you're dead. If you take 33 reason, you're dead. So if that's the case, so basically you compare that to how much max stamina and max reason Kana may lose. And so Kana, 8 stamina, 8 reason. If you die to 1, and I assume your reason falls too, so that's about 1, 2, 3, because your stamina hits 24. You lose 24 stamina over the course of the run. And then you maybe lose like 16 reason. So that's, anywhere upwards of 20-25% doom. But you can definitely finish a run with less than that if you're being efficient, is what I'm trying to say. So that's where I'm pulling the number 15-20% doom from, on top of everything that's happening. But of course, if you decide to go for a weapon, that adds on more doom. But we're just strictly talking about how much doom you're going to get on an Eldritch Parasite run, playing as Kana on average, if you're listening to me crunch the numbers. Nice 10 roll on luck, by the way, game. I really appreciate that. I don't, but again, I think you understand where I'm coming from. And maybe you can be a bit more efficient. Again, if you're a wizard in this game, you will experience a lot of, or you will have less difficulty completing a run, is what I'm trying to say. We don't want to actually take 3 reason here, so. And so even just taking this example here, so I've already lost 10 reason, so I would have had 5 doom already. Now, this run in particular is a bit lucky doom-wise, because we have Scissors and Recluse, which means overall my doom is going to be lower. But again, that's a variable outside of Eldritch Parasite Kana. And then the big meat of it, if I listen and have, or if I were to repeat what I have listened to and read, within the past 3 to 6 months of people talking about basically the better characters. So Kana's reason for being very, very good is because if you get the God comp, I will define this as if you have Mind Drain, Ghostly Spear, and or specifically Ghostly Spear and Mind Drain and Flesh Regrowth, which allows you to heal stamina but costs quote unquote max reason. You get free stamina healing. But on an Eldritch Parasite run, you get absolutely bodied. So that probably accounts for, around 5% of your total runs. Because again, my guidelines were that, and this is where guidelines and what you're basing your tier list off of comes into play here. And the difficulty, I think, does play a bigger part than some people think. But, I'm not going to argue too much if you're like, well, Jordan, that's not true because you can still talk. Well, you can certainly talk about characters in a general sense still. I'm deciding what I want to take here. I think the strength and thing. But, let's just assume, like, in general, I'm not going to argue that Kana, if you get the God comp as Kana, you're going to have a much easier time. 5 claps, by the way. And a squeaky chair. I'm sitting on a different chair, funny enough, but anywho. So we can just, we're probably just going to eat this in the face. We only have 2 knowledge, so we're going to kind of eat more of this in the face, but since we're not on timeline A, we can do this, and even if we were, we can do some other cool stuff, but it's fine. So that being said, I mentioned, so this run's kind of parallel to what I've said in other videos before, and definitely I think my tips video, in which encounters or battle in World of 4 is a big part of your survivability. So therefore, if you can basically just Mind Drain and or Ghostly Spear for pretty much no cost, you get to, you don't take any damage at all. Whereas in this run in particular, I'm probably going to take a lot more damage. We want to take the stamina damage, though, before I cast Ghostly Spear, because otherwise there's nothing much else happening. But in this case, so Kana would not have taken any damage in this encounter. And that also helps out with, when you're losing stamina and reason in an Eldritch Parasite run, if you have either of those 2 spells, you're definitely taking a lot less damage. And so therefore your doom is not going to raise as high. But I don't want to call it a counter argument, but if you were to consider what else happens in a run, I think events play a big part as well. Now, obviously, knowing what you're going to run into in your events does help out with survival overall, but still, and that's why I said Kana probably takes less doom on Eldritch Parasite. I'm not saying you're gonna, I don't think, and if I have said it, let me correct myself by saying, well, 5 claps? Hold on, 5 claps? No! 12.5%. But anywho, so, in events, you can probably make choices in which you can lower the amount of Eldritch Parasite Kana doom damage you're taking, so, and then again, if you get Mind Drain and Ghost, you know what, I should do a little mini-series for Kana, but you get what I'm trying to say at this point, I think, is that, if you even just get Ghostly Spear or Mind Drain on Kana, especially specifically on an Eldritch Parasite run, you're sitting pretty for a lot for like all encounters. But events are the other big part of it, I feel. But anywho, but I guess we'll find out. You know, maybe I should do. How many Eldritch Parasite Kana runs have I done, by the way? Oh, I think I've done some, but I think nice 9 roll, by the way. Thankfully, this character has 9 luck. But so the reason I'm not as sure is because I'm pretty sure I usually try to avoid using Mind Drain and Ghostly Spear as a self-house rule. But if you want to, you know, if we're trying to go by the guidelines that I've set for myself in my tier list, we can do some Kana runs where we allow ourselves to do it. And then there's, of course, there is the randomness of finding Mind Drain and Ghostly Spear in the History Club, because that's probably what you'd use. But still, though, it's probably worth it, all things considered, because most of the time, not a huge majority, but I would say still a majority of times, you are experiencing some trouble or a lot of your Eldritch Parasite pain, specifically, will come from... was concentrating for a moment there. We don't want to lose reason, basically, but it's gonna come from encounters. So, but we'll do some runs and find out. At least for what's the phrase for it? There's a scientific phrase for it. The practical data. I forgot what the exact phrase was, or the experimental probability, if nothing else. But again, we're looking at a vacuum of runs, and I'll probably only do like a handful. But maybe we'll do like I'll add in for the next week some videos of Kana runs specifically on Eldritch Parasite. But if not, I mean, we'll see. I mean, if you have anything else, like any variables you want me to consider, let me know right now. But otherwise, I mean, going back to the topic of tier lists and whatnot, I mean, yes, it might sound silly to some people, but it is I mean, there is a point to really calculate all of this out because, well, I mean, there is at some point, the numbers just exist. There is randomness because you don't know what events you're going to run into. You don't know what curses you're going to get when you get a curse, or injuries, or enemies when they appear, so on and so forth. And and specifically for tier list sake, unless it says so, but in mine, I'm only looking at the base game, so we're not looking at custom characters, events, and mysteries. If you add any custom, well, maybe a few you won't notice events, but if you're using a custom character or you're playing on a custom mystery, you will see a change in balance here and there. And more so if a mystery leans more towards, you know, a certain type of damage or a certain type of playstyle. But again, that depends on what you run into. But I feel, at least for what all the events I'm using, there is a kind of shift in balance. Not by like a huge margin, but it's not insignificant. That's kind of my range. So yeah, but again, to repeat, for the sake of Kana before we move on to another character, probably Ayaka, is that, yeah, I won't argue if someone puts Kana in like top 3 because of that, because of being able to use any, if not all of those 3 spells, because that it helps out immensely. Any one of those 3 spells on a normal run, on a non-Eldritch Parasite run, will help, but you do still want to be aware of, I think I picked that twice. So in my last recording, I picked the same option, and I think I just got it. 10 experience, though. Losing 10 experience, but decreasing Doom by 2 is pretty good, though. But we're dying to reason right now, so hey. Yeah, so there are other things to consider, like the Doom and the max threat level. I think that's something that's easily missable. And if you're wondering where a lot of your Doom might come from, it usually comes from your other max threat level location. So on top of the fact that Doom does not decrease at the end of a Harbinger mystery, a Harbinger of Doom difficulty mystery, then yeah, that's like another 8 to 12% Doom on top of anything compared to True Believer, and I really do believe that. I crunched the numbers in my last recording, but now obviously this is the recording that you'll probably see. And then not much else to say because the end run is ending, but on for Ayaka specifically, I mean, I will never argue if someone says Ayaka is the best character in the game at the moment. It's just that I have a subjective pain for it. And even on my tier list, I think Ayaka is above Toshiaki in the objective, or my attempt to be more objective tier list. But if, because I think I made like 2 versions, and it's pretty funny, but the second version was if RNG is, basically if your RNG is bad, Toshiaki is at least a little more consistent, in my opinion, than Ayaka. But again, that might not be true, but it certainly feels that way to me. But objectively, I wouldn't argue that. So, anywho, if you want to hear me talk more about characters and how good they are, let me know, because I definitely had a lot more to say. We were basically stuck talking about Kana, but it won't take up much more of your time. If you want to support me subscribing, just even listening and or watching the video, as much as you can helps out. Otherwise, if you have any comments, you know what to do. Any questions, criticism, anything you want to see in this series, or otherwise, you know, I will at least try to read it, because boy, I have a lot of things on my plate. Thank you for watching. Bye!